So let's talk about traffic. A traffic peak, as we said, they can crash your network. Okay? We already talked about this. They can crash it hard, right? If you ever exceed the capacity, you will be down. Your network will go down for, I'll just put here, several painful minutes. Shall I put painful on here? People will call you. Is it that Cox ad they have now where the people's, I've never heard that ad because I always see it in the gym. The people's computers suddenly disappear below the desks. Have you guys seen that one? Is that about the network going down? Seems like it would be. All of a sudden it just goes down. This is the kind of down that people call you or they go take a break and you get into a lot of trouble. Ooh, look at that vibrating camera. Spooky. All right, we're back. You guys remember the earthquake? Like when that earthquake happened like 3 years ago? You guys remember that? The whole, like, everything shook and I was like, man, a truck must have driven by. Like, was that an earthquake? Dang. It's a little minor earthquake. You guys saw it shaking, right? It wasn't me. The thing was shaking. Happens at my house when a big truck goes by. All right, where are we at? Traffic peaks. Okay. So we don't like traffic peaks. And what we do, let's just draw our little line here. So here's our graph. And let's say our capacity is about right here. You know, let's say, this is 100 megabits per second on some trunk line. I'm not going to write that, okay? So over the course of the day, so I don't know, this is like, let's call this 8 o'clock a.m. when people start showing up for work. 5 o'clock is in here somewhere. And what happens is, of course at night it's really dead, and then we have a nice climb, and then it's fine, and then a big peak at lunchtime, and then it kind of fades off, okay? If we ever hit this point, we'll just put here, boom, we are dead, okay? So if you ever see that happening, the way we manage for it is very interesting. The normal way we cope with that is called overprovisioning. Okay? This is actually a telecom word. Provisioning is like setting up a certain amount of capacity. Overprovisioning means you give them more capacity than they asked for. Okay? So what we're going to do here is where our capacity before was 100 megabits per second. Now we're going to put our capacity up here. And now this capacity is going to be, I'm just going to draw it way higher. You want to be here about 85% or below. It's funny, when we were on a hubbed network, if you ever got above about 30%, you'd start freaking out. Because once it started, you get these race conditions where, lots of collisions start building up and lots of retransmissions happen, and, you could go from 50% to, 100% in 20 milliseconds. Well, I don't know that fast, but you go really fast and you'd freak out. So you want to be about 85% or below, or what do we, of capacity. So you really want to watch what your traffic is on your network. All right, it's possible to have priority. And a lot of people do this. So if we have a capacity, draw my capacity here a little lower. Let's say we can't afford to raise the capacity, which, by the way, with Ethernet it's not an excuse. So if we think here, let's go back to our 50 different things here. So let's think here. We have a certain capacity on this switch, and our switch starts getting within 85% of its capacity, so we're starting to get a lot of traffic on our trunk lines, and we're about 85%. What's our solution to that problem? The easiest one is to buy a higher capacity switch. You know, yeah, it's the difference between what, $1,000 and $10,000, but I can spend $10,000 and take care of my whole problem. And I go from, you know, being 85% of capacity to being like 10% of capacity overnight. And then I get to sleep. With priority, it's a whole different matter. And so let's say, I'm just going to draw this a little lower. You know, we go over the capacity, and we'll just go over it a couple of times. If we have priority, we can have two types of traffic. So I can have like voice traffic is going to be high priority, and then I can have data traffic that's going to be dropped. Okay? What happens is, I might as well draw this again. It has to do with those input queues. You guys remember those? So remember, I have my input queue, and here's where my capacity is too low. Okay? So we might go over capacity here. So what happens, though, is I'm going to start stacking in frames, and if someone sends me a data frame, and let's say I've got a data frame that's coming out here, then if someone sends in a voice frame, it immediately goes to the front of the queue. Does that make sense? So the voice frames, if they come in, they always go to the front of the queue, and if we start getting a lot of data frames, they're the ones that eventually get dropped. That makes sense. Oops, except I did, voice was supposed to be orange, sorry. I'm trying to be all color-coded here. The voice stuff is orange, so it immediately goes to the front of the queue. If you actually do priority, this is another management thing. There are several levels of priority that would just basically go to where does it land in the queue. And someone might have low priority and they would always get dumped. At ODU, I know they do tag voice frames with high priority. Okay? The phone automatically tags it. That's the problem with data. Where does the tag come from? We have to put a tag on every frame. In ODU, again, the phone puts the tag on the frame. The application has to put the tag on the frame. Are we good here? So what this means is if my company wants to implement priority, and it would be cool to have, for example, you know, here it's just voice versus data. What if I had a mission critical application? Like my ordering application that people call in and take orders on? Well, I'd want that to be a high priority, right? That means I need to go into my ordering application and raise its priority. Y'all seeing that? That's going to cost me big money. Can you see where overprovisioning is nice and cheap? 10,000 bucks and I just take care of the problem. To do this, how much does an application cost to reprogram? How much is your time worth? It's kind of scary when you actually lay it out. You know, one of us earns, you know, just even entry-level people, we're $45,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, and you might spend, you know, 3 months recoding, putting tags in an application. You know, that's $20,000. You could have bought a new switch and called it a day. So that's why everybody does over-provisioning. Priority is also rare. The other problem with priority is most of the applications we do now are web apps, right? So web traffic is web traffic. How do you go into your internet browser and set the traffic for some websites to be higher priority than other websites? That's going to be a fun time. Is it under filters? I don't know. I don't know where it is. Yeah, go find it. It probably isn't there. Priority tagging. Yeah, this is something that most people don't do. Few apps do this, okay? And the fact of the matter is, it's just so much more expensive to add it to an app than it is to just buy a new switch, upgrade a patch cable, whatever you need to do on a trunk line or whatever. That was fun. Come on. Should we put a $sign? This costs you lots of money. This costs you a little money, so we'll put cents there.
And how much do the business world people understand this?
No one will even nobody ever brings this up. You guys know that we're like the arcane people of whatever. We're like the medicine men. Well, no, they'll say like, hey, when we see something like this approaching, so it'll be like, hey, you're within 80% of the capacity, this could really go down. Then you have to go in and say, look, if this network goes down, it'll be minutes of downtime. And I can replace it now and you won't see that downtime, or we can wait till the downtime and then you'll want me to replace it yesterday. So these are the kind of things you just make a PowerPoint slide, come on. Make a PowerPoint slide, you put this graph on it, and you say, if we ever exceed this point, the network would go down. And then we wouldn't even bring up priority because we know it's a bad idea. We're business people, come on. We can make PowerPoint slides. But don't draw them by hand like this. Do them in like Excel. Far better, what would you say? Far more for your credibility.